What's going on, everyone? Hyper here, and finally back with another locals, and uh, also back from my self-imposed hiatus, which was much needed after the last one, and it was much better this time go around. I was in a much better state of mind, I think, and I think I did a lot better than previously. And yeah, had a little bit better results, I think, given the fact that Power of the Elements was released, what would we say, last Friday, which is huge. To be fair, it's so huge because we're getting two huge archetypes. And let's just be honest, no one cares. No one really cares about the support for the other cards. No one cares. No one really cares about the Neos and all that. They're insignificant. It's really all about Splight and Tearlaments. That's what it's all about. That's really the new meta. Um, and from what I've gathered, at least from the OCG, when they received their version of Power of the Elements, Splight just took over completely. And then Tearalaments was the next closest. And, I mean, it's not surprising when you've seen what it can do. But, I mean, just like any other deck, it's got its weaknesses. And, I mean, I'm probably going to create a video on that. But something I noticed, which was, I would say, interesting, because, again, I prepared my Swordsoul to take on more Splight than, was actually there, because nobody played Splight at all. And what I'm kind of gathering from at least the TCG community, that's kind of how everybody feels. They don't really care that much about Splight. Not saying that it's not going to be used. Maybe they just haven't caught on. Maybe people are just trying to learn it. But yeah, it was actually, there was, I think, 4 people playing Tearalaments, and then there was just other decks, other archetypes and things like that. But I think the one big advantage I think that really helped is for the past 2 weeks, that's all I played, at least online, for the different online, other online venues, I guess is a way to put it. That's all I played, Tearlaments. That's all I played. And I'm going to tell you something, it's powerful. Now, yes, it does. I think it does depend on what version you play. And obviously how you build it really does affect it. But I feel pretty confident in the version that I currently play. So much so that, and maybe this is also just the power of Tearlaments, that people just surrender when I play it. They just surrender. They don't want to go against it. And, going into ranked, like today, I did, I think, 5 ranked matches. I won every single one of them 2-0. I would say probably 2 of them mediocre decks. One of them was a math mech, and I just don't think he knew what he was doing. But I do remember 2 of them were against Eldlik. And I'm going to tell you, I just stomped the living crap out of him. It is that good. So, be on the lookout for that gameplay. And also, I'll probably put out a guide on at least my guide of the Tearlaments. Because, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, and I'm not saying that all the information out there is worthless. I'm not saying that I know more than them. But I do think that you should be careful, because I don't think a lot of these people really have played it to a great extent. Like, they'll put things in there, like, let's just be honest, it makes no sense. And I think, when you see my guide, I think you'll probably agree with me. So, yeah, that experience was super helpful for me. It really, really gave me an edge, because I was watching them try to play it, and I just casually asked them, you know, what version you playing? And they were like, oh, well, I'm playing the punk version. I'm like, okay, all right. Well, as I said, when I get to my guide, I'll tell you why it's not necessarily a good idea. But again, it's my opinion. So, but again, having that experience and knowing that they were not experienced with it gave me a huge advantage. Because I knew things that they just took, they took for granted of not knowing. But anywho, I would say, as I said, it was a good week this time. I ended up winning 3 out of the 2. And it was a pretty decent sized crowd. Again, all because of Power of the Elements. But first match, let's get into it. First match went against Zombie deck. Found out the guy's name's Bobby. And he likes to normally run the Skull Servant type of zombie deck. And apparently he played a new variant and ended up getting 4th place the week before. Well, I didn't really get to see much of the deck because I didn't let him play at all. He didn't get the chance to play. So, my guess, he just didn't really draw what he needed. Because I won the first 2 duels in relatively quick fashion. I mean, I think both of them in total, it took about 10 minutes. So, I don't know who he went against. I mean, hey, kudos to him. He got 4th. I mean, especially with this crowd that I go against, that's not easy. But, yeah, it just, I didn't understand. Then my second duel, or I guess my second match, I'm going to get it right eventually with these terms. My second match, I went against a different zombie deck. And this guy's, I cannot stand it. I mean, because it's a very well put together deck. And it's so hard to go against it. And I ended up dropping both duels just because I could not get anything going. But I mean, I at least I didn't go down without a fight. Let's put it that way. I did not go down without a fight, and he even said so. He's like, you drew crap. I said pretty much. And he said, but at least you didn't quit. But I tell you what, I felt like it. But I'm like, you know what? Nope. We're gonna finish this out. We're gonna try to put up some sort of fight. Maybe we'll get lucky, but no, he's not that careless. He just walked over me. I mean, there wasn't anything I could do because I just did not have the cards. But I mean, it is what it is. So Third match, I ended up losing that one as well. The guy was playing an aqua water deck, which was super interesting. And I won the first duel and then lost the second two, or the other two. But interestingly, we ran out of time on the third one, and I lost to a stupid mistake. In that I negated the wrong monster with my Shishao. And that cost me everything because I had him on life points. I had him down by 12 because of the Long Yun effect. And I negated the wrong one. But I mean, I didn't know what he had in his hand, if he could have finished me, or I didn't know. I didn't know what he had. But apparently I negated the wrong one, and he was able to summon an Exceeds monster, and he was able to do his burn damage, and there was just nothing I can do. And he gave me those tips, and it was helpful. But I kicked myself. I was like, "Oh, you dummy! You knew this. Why did you?" No, well, it is what it is. For my fourth match, went against a punk, which was a first. Let's be honest, that was a first. And it was a welcome surprise because, I mean, I don't really see punk that much in Master Duel. Although, to be fair, I haven't been playing as much of Master Duel. But I've never seen a punk deck. And so it was, I apologize profusely. I'm like, man, I am so sorry. I have no idea what these cards do. None. I don't know what they do. I don't know what your game plan is. So I said, I'm apologizing. I'm going to probably be asking you, hey, what do these do? And he's like, no, it's fine. But I ended up winning. 2-0. And I get the feeling I annoyed him. Even though like we ran out of time. Or we were running out of time. I basically, number one, like in the second duel, I was beating him on life points. So that wasn't really an issue. But I made a point to use my Mystic Mine as a way to stall. And I could just tell on his face where he's just like, really? This is how it's going to be? Really? And I mean, it's a viable tactic. That's all I'm going to say. It's a viable tactic. But I could just tell he was annoyed. But I mean, I've seen what it could do, and I'll just be honest with y'all. I didn't want to fight it. I did well to counterattack on the first round to get the win. I had set up a pretty decent board, got a good counterattack to where he just couldn't respond, and so it was game over. But the second one was kind of the back and forth, and that one, it worried me, and so I'm like, well, hey, I got a Mystic Mine. He's got 3 monsters on the board. I don't want him to play. So we really, I mean, I shut him down. Just didn't let him play. And I had zero intention of attacking. And that's when he just realized I wasn't going to do anything. And he realized that he was running out of time, and so he just let it go. He surrendered. And he said, what's really annoying, he said, you always prevented me from going into my boss monsters, and I was kind of explaining it. Once he explained what they do, I was like, man, I am so glad I negated the cards I did. He's like, you should have. He said that was just good intuition on your part, because it would have been over. And he was right when I read them. And then for my last match, went against Tearlaments finally, and it was a punk variation. And for those of you who don't know, the punk variation typically has a mixed extra deck where I would have Fusion, Link, Exceed, and Synchro. So, pretty much has all of them except for Ritual. So, a little bit more diverse, I guess you would say the pure or the branded version. Maybe even the danger version as well. But the problem was that, again, he didn't have the experience. He didn't know the weak points. And it was just the way his deck was set up. And there was just a lot of inconsistencies with his deck. But I ended up, so funny enough, I actually won the first two, but ended up having to take a loss on the first one because my deck was invalid because it wasn't in the original state. And I didn't know that because I had basically hit him with a dimensional barrier called Fusion and completely shut him down. And apparently you can't do that. And he's like, how would you main deck that? And I'm like, well, I didn't change it. And he's like, well, you can't do that. So I ended up taking the L, and I agreed to it. And I was like, I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to cheat. I didn't mean it to come out like that. But he was okay with it, and he was chill. So we ended up going to a game 3. And again, I just completely shut him down. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I knew exactly how to stop him. And there was just nothing he can do. It just was what it was. So I think what I'm going to do, guys, I'm going to create that guide for Tearlaments. Number one, I think it's going to be huge in this meta. I'll probably create one for Splite as well. But I think my first one's going to be for Tearlaments because that's what I'm seeing. Again, doesn't mean Splite won't exist. But right now, it just feels like it's all Tearlaments. That's all people want to play. But that'll be for the future. So, glad y'all can make it. If you would, please, just leave a like, subscribe, share it, leave a comment. I appreciate it. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.